fellow YoraHomers. This is the drag chain upgrade video for the YoraHome 6550 laser engraving machine. When you receive the kit, it should include the following components: the X-axis drag chain assembly, the Y-axis drag chain assembly, a 2-meter stepper motor wire, 2 small zip ties, 2 M5 bolts, 2 M3 bolts, and 2 M3 lock nuts. The tools you'll require for the installation are as follows: a set of hex keys. The set that came with the 6550 will work just fine. Otherwise, I'm going to use my own drivers just because it's a little quicker. Additionally, you're going to need a set of needle nose pliers or small vice grips. I prefer the vice grips because they can clamp down, but you don't need to use these. Any needle nose pliers will work. And you'll need a small screwdriver, flatheads best, but you could use a Phillips. We're going to be using it to pry, so it doesn't have to be a flathead. Before the installation, there are a few steps that must be performed in preparation. First, unplug all of the wires. So you're going to unplug the X stepper motor wire, the Y stepper motor wire, the laser wire. Now this is a 15 watt, so it has the separate board. If you have a smaller wattage laser, it's probably all built into the laser head. But unplug the wire that goes to the control board. So all 3 wires need to be unplugged on both the control board and the motors and the laser. We will be reusing the laser wire, so keep that handy. We'll also be using the Y stepper wire. The X stepper wire, the one that's attached here, you can put aside. This new 2-meter wire will replace it. Additionally, I highly recommend you label your wires. You'll see I used a Sharpie and I put a Y on the 4-pin side. So the smaller, this is the 6-pin that goes into the motor. This is the 4-pin. Put a little Y on it with a Sharpie. So that's simple. Likewise, I may try to put X's on these when I kit them, but if there's no X on the 4-pin connector on the upgrade wire, write an X on it. Technically, all you really need is the Y, because the other one has to be X, but I'm thorough. Okay. Additionally, this drag chain upgrade only works if you've installed your control board in the prescribed location according to the manual, which is in the back right corner of the machine. If you want to use this upgrade, that's where the control board needs to be installed. If you've installed it elsewhere, you will need to move it. So make sure you do that. Additionally, the stepper motors have to be oriented a specific way. The X stepper motor, the wire connector, needs to be on the left side of the motor. The Y stepper motor needs to be on the back side of the motor, pointing back towards the control board. Make sure you have those in the correct orientation before you install this upgrade, or it will not work properly. Once you have that done, you can begin. First thing we're going to do, we're going to take our X drag chain, we're going to open it up. Now the orientation on the machine looks like this. So there is a small indentation here with 2 holes that will marry against the corner of this plate. Likewise, the drag chain clamp for the stepper orients like this. First thing we do is run our wires. Now this drag chain is a semi-open design, which means these little clips on the back of it can be opened. There is a small side here and a large side here. The small side's where it hinges. The large side is where it opens. This is where this tool comes in. Gently, and start from the drag chain side. So orient it just as I have it. Insert your screwdriver underneath the larger side. Place your thumb gently over the, on this orientation left side where it's a little smaller right here, and pry up. They just pop. If you do it this way, you'll always have a place to put the screwdriver because the next one will be there. Do this all the way down the drag chain. Now, if one of these comes off, which can and probably will happen, because they just pop off, it's not a problem. There's a little clip on the back of this, and there's like a little pin here. So you place that slot over the pin and you just snap it back. That's all. Very simple. If you put your thumb on it and you're gentle, it should just pop. And again, you're going to want to go all the way down. Be gentle. Make sure your screwdriver's to the right side, right where it's going to open. Just gently pry up. There's really no science to this, just tedious. All right. Now, when you get to the end, you can leave this last one. You don't have to pop that. That can stay the way it is. There's enough room. Now, we need to get our laser wire and our new 2-meter stepper wire. So, we need the 6-pin side to push through this stepper motor clamp. So the same way we opened it, I'm going to push this through, and then I would tuck it just so it doesn't fall out. Try tucking it there. You're going to do the exact same thing with the laser wire. Poke it through, and then just kind of gently tuck it in the clamp. Okay. Next, gently feed it into the channel underneath these little tabs. And then if you want, just kind of close a few of them as you work your way down. If you close them every few inches, it'll kind of hold them in place. All right. As we get to the bottom, oh, look, one fell. All right, now as we get to the last couple, you're going to want to feed the 4-pin wire through that hole there. Gently pull it through. And you're going to do the exact same thing with the laser wire. Feed it through that hole there. And then gently pull it through. So if you've done it right, I didn't close one of these, did I? So let's just run these where they go. And we pull these through. So now don't pull too hard. You don't want to pull them through the other end. Just pull out the slack so that they're, you know, seated all the way. So next we close our drag chain links. Again, just gently, you just press and they snap back. Okay. So, that is our X axis. Next, we're going to run our wire through our y-axis. So if you open it up, this is the bracket that attaches it to the rear of the machine. This is the bracket that attaches it to the stepper motor. Here. So to run the wire, you know it's going to be mounted here. We need to push it down through this hole. So first, we open the links just like we did previously. And just like the last time, you can leave that last one. Okay, so we go back to the stepper bracket. So it should be in this orientation. We pass our wires. So what I do is I usually snap the first one. That kind of sets it. And then we're basically doing the same thing now. Also, make sure you're passing through the Y stepper wire. So you can pull that straight through. You're going to want to leave a little play, so tuck it into the clamp like you did on the other side. And now these 3 wires together, you run in this channel, snapping these close as you go every few inches, just to kind of keep the wire in place so you can go back and close up the clips. Again, this is not a science. Now, as you get to the end, this is probably the trickiest bit. This hole right here is not the biggest. This one here. Start with one of your 2 4 wires. Push it through the hole. Should just fit. Gently pull it through the other side. To your other 4 wire. What you want to do is always push through your larger wires. Leave the little 3 for last because that's the smallest wire. It needs the least amount of space. Okay. Once you've done that, you can close this right up, just like you did on the other side. Alright, now last but not least, at the end of this, there's one last hole. This is where they come out to go to the control board. So again, start with a 4 wire, push it through, it should just fit, and then do the other 4, and then the 3. Should be that easy. Now we don't have enough play here yet. We're going to adjust that in a minute. But we've got our wires run. So bear in mind this is all connected now, so you have to be kind of careful with these. Now, we're going to start with the X. So let's do this. Technical difficulties with the camera. I'm thinking I don't want to mess with that. Alright. So here's what I'll do. I will pull it over a little bit so you can see. So I'm going to move this so you can get a sense of what's going on here. So you're going to take your stepper, your drag chain, and you're going to bend this side. It flexes, but this is the proper orientation. Okay, so you've got this opening here. There's a nut in the bottom pre-installed, and there's a hole in the top. That's where our M5 bolt's going to go. When you open this, be very gentle. It will break if you push too hard. I'm going to show you the correct technique to install this here. First thing, we take these 2 wires out that we tucked in so they're out of the way. Next, we're going to line, again, so watching our orientation, the opening should be to the left, which is where the wire connector is on the stepper motor. Basically, you're going to want to line it up as if you're going to pass it onto the stepper. And then very gently with your left hand from this side, pry that open. Just enough so it clears the connector for the stepper motor. There's a piece of metal that protects that connector so you won't hurt it, And then you can see it flexes enough, just enough. So don't yank that open, you'll break it. Line it up on the stepper, open this bracket, and then just slide it on, and it'll click right on. I've done this a million times. I've never broken one using that technique. Next step, take your M5 bolt. If you bend this drag chain a little bit, you don't have to put pressure on it, just turn it. There's just enough room to pass that bolt through. Use your hex screwdriver or key, Allen key, and just tighten it down. You want to adjust this so it's flat and centered. Generally, you just have to kind of push down on it gently, and then screw this down. Do not over tighten this. I can't say that strongly enough. You will break this bracket. These brackets were not meant for a lot of force. So you'll start to feel a little resistance. You can stop as soon as there's just a little resistance. You don't need this to be super tight. There's not a lot of force on here. It's a clamp, and as you can see, it will hold, and it doesn't come off because of the geometry of these motors. So as soon as you clamp that on, you're good. So that is how it should look on this side. And this is about how much play you want in these wires. So now I'm going to push that to the left side. And now we're going to focus on the bracket on the right. On this bracket, you'll notice there are two holes. Those are for these M3 screws, nuts, or bolts rather. So you're going to want to, it's going to be a real close tolerance. You probably have to push it a little to get it to go. But you can insert one. You can actually screw it right down. So it will thread itself through the plastic. And be gentle here on your drag chain. You don't want to put a lot of torque on it. Just kind of hold it where I've got it. And screw this through. If you want to do this previously, you can. I mean, there's no need for it to be in this order. Just don't lose the bolts. Now, once it gets to the bottom, it might get tight. Keep screwing it to kind of strip out that hole. You want it to turn freely. Now, do the exact same step for the bottom hole. And again, when it reaches the point where it hits the plastic, it's going to give a little resistance. Just keep turning it. Just turn it a few times so that it's, it turns freely. That's really all you need. Now there are two holes on this bracket here. Turn you a little more. Yeah. There's two holes here. These screws will line up with those holes. And once you get it right, it's going to push right on. And there was an inset that's going to go right on the corner here. So you'll know you have it right. Now actually sit there. Now this is probably the trickiest bit of this whole process. Because you got these little M3 nuts. Now, I much prefer vice grips. I'm going to show you. First of all, if you're using needle nose, you can't go all the way on the nut. There's not enough clearance. So you go about halfway on the flat spot on the nut. And then you want to make sure where the nut's going to go up against the plastic, it's clear of your pliers. So with vice grips, you can get it set and then it'll hold it. That's why I prefer little vice grips, but not everyone has these. Doesn't matter, you can use pliers. You're just going to have to pay real close attention to where you grab the nut. But as you'll see, this does fit. You don't need a special tool. So on the back side, you'll insert the nut. It's going to go into this socket a little bit to be able to line up. That's why I had to kind of go halfway. But you'll line it up with the bolt. And then from the other side, you'll screw that right on. Now tighten it good. You don't have to put tons of torque, but tighten it right down. And then you're going to repeat that process for the second nut. And you're basically going to do the exact same thing. Again, the key here, the Tom's tip here is only put your pliers halfway on the flat spot of the nut. That'll let you put it in enough where it clears. All right. So now the fun part, we get to test our X drag chain. So first, move it all the way to the right and make sure everything clears. It should go all the way to the stop, and the way I've designed this bracket, it should hold the drag chain at that angle, and I've got these clearances so this should pass underneath. If you've done everything right, everything should clear. Likewise, go all the way to the left, and you should just have a teeny bit of play, not much, just a little. And then that part of the build is done. Next we're going to do the Y. So I'll turn you a little bit so you can see. Now, same process. We're going to remove the stepper wire that we tucked in to keep it from getting away from us. And again, you line the bracket up with the stepper, the orientation it's going to go. Once it's lined up, you very gently pry open the clamp bracket just wide enough where this opening here is big enough to pass over where the wire connector is. And you'll see once you get it, it'll slide on. You don't have to put any force. You can just pop it on, boom. There you go. Second M5. It's right in the hole in the top. Now note the orientation. The drag chain points forward here. The nut's always on the bottom, the bolt's always on the top. You wouldn't be able to easily screw it in otherwise. Again, center this. I gently kind of, you'll twist it, you'll feel where when you're pushing down it'll sit. And while you're doing that, tighten this up. And again, do not over tighten it, just tighten enough where you feel it's kind of close. You'll know because this bracket will be nice and tight, it won't move. Alright, so last step. Let me move the camera so you can see this bit. This will be the hardest for me to get on camera because it's in the back and I'll be in the way, but I'll do my best. So, this bracket has two holes and it's got a little bit of an inset. It will mate directly against the back plate that the board is on, and the same bolts, the M6s that hold the back plate on, will pass through these holes and then into the plate and then into the metal. So there's no bolts provided for this because you can use the ones that are part of your machine. So your first step is to remove the two bolts holding on the control board plate and the back foot. Now remember, when you do this, there's nothing supporting the rear. If you have the gantry all the way up front, it'll actually kind of sit, because on three legs it will sit. And then obviously the board's going to come loose. So what you do is, you put this plate so you can see it, okay? And then these screws are going to thread through. Now again, the tolerances are tight, so you're going to have to kind of thread them through like I'm doing. One, I haven't gone all the way yet, but we will. And I'm using the original key. I actually don't have a hex driver this big. So, you can actually go more or less all the way down if you want. Move the rubber out of the way. And then line this foot up where it belongs. I usually do the top one first. the bottom one. And again, the way this is designed, it should mate exactly where it goes because I've done these little insets. Alright, now the next thing we need to do is just adjust our wire length. So at this point you can start plugging things in. Let me back you out. Give you a little turn. I don't know why it does that when I turn it, but we'll get there. Alright, so laser wire goes to laser. Stepper wire, you don't want too much length here, so kind of pull it through. But you don't want any tension, so you want to leave a little. So you plug in the stepper wire to the stepper motor, and as you can see, I have just a little loop. That's probably perfect. You want to push this over and just make sure it clears. So the way I have those wires run, you can see they don't interfere. So that's pretty much perfect. And I can take the camera and zoom in on that when I'm done, just to kind of show. Now, I'll turn you guys because you don't need to see the other axis anymore. On this end, there are some holes on this plate, and they're just the right size for these zip ties. So, the cleanest look is to put these from behind, oriented like that, or if you want to go, actually it's probably easier to cut this way, oriented like that. So I would recommend this way, and put it through the outside, the hole in the back. So I'll do the top one first. And they'll just, once you line it up, they poke right through. So I get a terrible angle. So it pokes through. And then generally the wires are going to kind of naturally go a certain way. You'll want them to kind of mate to each other flat, nice and flat. And then you can bend this, and there's another hole right there. You can push it back. Alright. And then we pass it through the zip tie opening. And again, kind of paying attention to how these wires naturally want to go. You know, you want this nice and clean. You don't want to yank on these wires, but you don't really want any, you don't need any slack where we are right now. So once you're happy with the slack, so once you know on the left side that those wires look good, on this side, go ahead and zip tie everything down nice and tight. Now, you can do the same for the bottom set of holes. You'll see there's 2 holes for a second zip tie. So you can kind of bring that out, go over the wires, remember to do that, and then back through the other hole. Just like that. So those holes are built right into this guy. And as you can see, that's going to make it look really nice. I'm not going to zip that one up. You guys understand how that all works. Now, we got a lot of play here, if you'll notice. And we actually need more wire in the back. So, first things first, let's settle this stepper wire. So this is the Y stepper wire. And basically, you can go ahead and plug that right in where it goes. With that play, we can adjust very easily. So that's plugged in. That's actually more than we need. Now, all you need to do, let me adjust this camera a bit, is gently tug on these wires and you'll take the play right out. And we need that length to be able to reach the control board. So you'll see I'm pulling the laser wire. I'm pulling so the Y is good, and the X we need a little extra. Okay. So when you're done, I'm going to just put you back so you can see. When you're done, it should look like that. You know what I'll do? I'll bring the camera closer at the very end so you can see everything. Okay. So now you've got your 3 wires hanging out the back here. This is where labeling these were important, so you know which is which, right? So that's Y, so I know that one goes to the outside. That makes this X, goes in the middle, and then the laser wire right there. Okay, so you want a little bit of excess here. Okay, you don't want these wires too tight. So you know, don't tighten them so much there's not a little bit of play in it. You want a little bit, but not a lot. And then you can go ahead and exercise your Y axis. And you can see how nice that is. There shouldn't be any binding. The wires should sort of float freely. So you can kind of see that. Alright, I'm going to take you down. And sort of give you a close-up of what we're looking at here, just so you can know. So the way I have this laser wire and the way I have this stepper wire, I'll show you as we move and we get over here. There's no interference. That's what we want to see. All right. Likewise, we've come out of here and we use our zip ties. This isn't tight, it's just there's not really any play. We've used our zip ties. This one I didn't cinch, but you cinch them down. And then essentially, when you get a different angle, you can kind of see they just bend over and go right in. And then again, this drag chain wire is, you just have a little loop, so there's some play. You don't want any strain on this connector. And it goes in the drag chain. And then in the back, you can kind of see how much we have, which isn't a lot. This is just, I mean, I actually, on my big machine, I zip tied these even a little bit because I've got all the limit switch wires coming through as well. You can just leave that. There's only about 6 inches. You got a little extra wire, so there's no pressure. Okay. And that, my friends, is a YoraHome 6550 with the upgraded drag chain links. This really, I think, makes this machine look super professional, and you never have to worry about your wires again. So I hope you've enjoyed this upgrade that I designed, and that it serves you well through all your crafting needs. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the group and we will help you out. Have a good night or day. It's night for me right now, but enjoy.
Jungle.